Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started? Thank you everybody for joining us today. Today's webinar is Anvil Webinar PDF Services. It's part 2 of 2. If you haven't seen our first part, I highly recommend taking a look at it at the end after this webinar. It goes through our user interface, how easy it is to set up PDF templates, shows you some of the nice features to make it simple for you to get started with filling out Anvil PDFs. My name is Mangat Ng. I am the co-founder and CEO of Anvil, and today we're going to go through the actual API development part of PDF services. I'm going to show you how to take a template, fill it out with information, as well as generating PDFs from HTML. So caveat, I haven't written code in a while, so you guys get to see me do this live, and we'll just see where this takes us. But why don't we go ahead and dive right in. So quick agenda for today. We're going to start with talking about API authorization. Then I'm going to briefly talk about sending JSON to fill out a PDF template that's already been set up inside of Anvil. And then we're going to talk a little bit about generating PDFs from HTML and CSS. This will be, there will be a live demo. So I will be doing this live and showing you how it works using a couple of our existing client libraries as well as Postman. And then we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. Before we dive in, just a quick overview for those who are new to Anvil. Anvil is developer-first infrastructure for building software that automates paperwork. What this means is we provide you with all the tools, both from a no-code and an API perspective, to easily collect information, prepare documents, and send it through e-signature. The nice thing is you get to build this all right into your product. It's embeddable, it's customizable, it's white labelable, and it's meant to really help you build your product faster. The Anvil platform consists of quite a few products that together help you really solve paperwork challenges within your industry, within your vertical. And we like to think of it as no code meets pro code. We take all the mundane, tedious parts of software development, like building web forms or mapping it to PDFs, and we make it easy to do that in our user interface or have somebody who is more operationally focused do that. And then everything in Anvil has a very robust API around it, so you can integrate it deeply into your product. The Anvil platform, today we're focusing in on PDF services. This is the underlying PDF service that powers all of our document generation within Anvil. And of course, there's an API into that, which we will be demonstrating. There's also eSign, which is our e-signature tool. It's embeddable, customizable, API-able. You can put it right into your product. Web Forms allows you to collect information. It's extremely powerful. It allows you to do data validation, and it even allows you to enter in snippets of JavaScript that you can then use to do data manipulation or logic on pieces of information that's provided. And then workflows kind of ties everything together. If you want to go from online web form to generated documents to e-signature, and you want to do it in a no-code fashion, workflow lets you configure that. The nice thing about workflows is that the output, or also web forms, is that the output is structured data that you can ingest into your product. We provide webhooks and API integrations for that, as well as any documents that are generated inside. On the right-hand side, it's a diagram of our product offerings, kind of depending on who's interacting with each piece. So you'll see at the top, we have end users. They're the ones that are interacting with eSign and web forms, and all the way down to the bottom, which are the engines that power our service. We also have robust enterprise features for our enterprise customers. Cool. So with every API, there is an authorization that needs to happen. So we're going to just quickly talk about API authorization, and then we'll also demonstrate this a little bit in our live tutorial. So there's 3 easy steps. You get your API key. If you're using one of Anvil's pre-existing clients, we will handle the base 64 encoding of the API key for you. But if you're not, make sure to base 64 encode it. This is something that actually we get a lot of questions about. So absolutely make sure to base 64 encode it, and then set it in the authorization header when you make your requests. To get the API keys, it's really easy. Just go to your settings in your Anvil account, your organization settings, and then there will be an API section where you can grab your API keys. There's also encryption keys that you can create to encrypt payloads of data before sending it across to Anvil, and then Anvil will decrypt it as part of our process. There are two different types of API keys. There's production and development. And as you can probably guess from the name, development is used for software development, when you're testing, when you're building out your product. It's heavily rate limited. There are watermarks on the PDFs generated, and the e-signatures, it goes through the same path, but the e-signatures are not actually cryptographically signed. So it's not a valid e-signature, but it does kind of give you that integration experience. Once you're ready to go into production, then you can use production keys, and the production keys are billed, whereas development keys are not billed. Both give you access to pretty much all the features with some limitations, but most features are available on development keys and production keys. A couple shortcuts for getting started. Like I mentioned, we do have a Postman workspace. This is all linked in our developer section on our website. We have language-specific API clients. We have a Python client, a Node client, a C# client. I believe there's also a Ruby and potentially Java, but definitely keep an eye out on our either a GitHub page or our developers landing page on useanvil.com. And then there's a bunch of example scripts. I know with each of the client-specific libraries, there's scripts in there that you can run to test things and play with our platform. Cool. So first item on the agenda today is sending JSON to fill out a PDF template. I know last time we set up a PDF template, I showed you all of the different field types, how to set different formatting options, set field aliases. Today, we're actually going to send data to that PDF or to a PDF and fill it out with information. So like I said, this is the PDF template editor. If you tuned in last time, this UI on the right-hand side should look pretty familiar. Field aliases, it's key to making Anvil easy to use. If you need to send the same piece of information to different types of PDFs, you don't want to have to know the key, unique key for each field. You want kind of an alias for it. So a name field is probably the same across all your PDFs. So instead of having a unique key for each PDF, you just send it over as name, and then you send the name. And then there is an API information tab that auto-generates a payload of data, which we will be using today to fill in the PDF. And this just makes it really easy for you to go from uploading a PDF template and to completing a filled out document. We also have interactive fields. Interactive fields are effectively acro fields, if anybody's familiar with the Adobe version of it. These are fields on a PDF that you can click on and type information into. They're also known as fillable fields. In the past, Anvil generated documents and they were all flattened, as in we would put data onto the PDF, we'd flatten the whole PDF, and it wasn't interactable anymore after that. With interactive fields, we actually you can set certain fields to be editable after it's been filled out. So you fill out a PDF, you send that PDF off to somebody, if they notice something is wrong, they can just click on that field and change the information. This is available on the field level. So when you're making an API request, you would set the interactive field to true. Cool. So with that, we're going to jump into a PDF fill demo. Over here, I am logged into the Anvil kind of demo account. As we did a tour last time, but we're currently in the document template space. But to start, we're going to go over to the settings. And you'll see here, there's API settings, and these are the API keys. For the security people out there, don't worry, we will be rotating these keys after this call today. So what you want to do is you want to copy the key, and I'm going to use Postman to demonstrate this today. So I'm going to go back to document templates. This is the sample template, and I'm just going to switch tabs over to Postman. So in Postman, I'm going to go over to our authorization, and I'm going to put in our key. Postman will handle the base 64 encryption encoding of it and everything. So we just need to put it in there. And then I'm going to toggle over to the body, and I'm just going to delete that for now. Coming into here, I'm switching over to the API tab. You'll notice there's a couple of pieces of information here that's really useful. We have the template ID. That's a unique identifier for this specific template. And then a fill API URL. This is the URL that you will use to fill out the PDF in a RESTful manner. We're just going to copy that. One thing you'll notice is that the template ID is the very end of this URL. So very easy to construct one of these if you would like. Coming over here, I'm just going to put that into the URL here. Again, switching back to here, you'll notice there's an example payload. I'm just going to copy the example payload. This is auto-generated based on the field type information. You can edit this if you'd like, and we can definitely do that inside of Postman. Put that here. Why don't we go ahead and say, instead of Robin Smith, we're going to say Joe Schmo and Joe test at example.com, just to change up some of the information in here. So you can see that I'm actually filling out this PDF, and then I'm going to hit send. Oh no, of course, live demo. Let's see what's happened here. Cannot get a response. There we go. I think that was just a fleeting error. But yeah, so the PDF has been generated. You'll notice that there's a demo kind of watermark here at the top left because I'm using the development key. You'll notice down here it says Joe Schmo, Joe test at example.com, and then the rest of the information was the provided information. This is a multi-page. It shows various types of fields in Anvil, including an image field. All this can be filled out. So if we go down here, you'll notice that like the image field is actually just a URL to an image that was passed in. Cool. So that is PDF fill, very simple. One thing to note about PDF fill is that it is a synchronous request. You make the request, we stream the PDF back to you. It's a very fast request. That's why we're able to do that. I know other services, they often do it as an async request. They trigger the process, and then when it's done, it calls back to your system. Anvil is synchronous, and just simply because we have the performance to do that. Cool. So that's PDF filling. Very easy. We just took a template, dropped in some data, and filled it out. This is just a standard JSON payload that you can generate from your database to put it onto a PDF. Cool. PDF demo, we'll leave some questions, some time at the end for questions. But really jumping into PDFs from HTML and CSS. This is great for when you have more dynamic information. Let's say you have a table that is unknown length and you want to be formatted nicely. You want to control the styling. You want to control the look and feel. This is a great use case for that. It's lots of times it's used for invoices, packing slips, barcodes and labels. So if you want to render a barcode onto a PDF, you could do that on a PDF fill as well. You would just have to pass an image of the barcode, but you could also do that in HTML and CSS. And just kind of diving right back into the demo. So in this demo, we actually don't need a template. So we're not really going to be interacting with this part of the website. It's really just an API endpoint. And so I'm going to go ahead, and this is the scary part. I'm just going to go into my terminal here. Let's make sure we can all see that. Make it a little bigger. Cool. So I have two terminal windows open here. I'm in a folder that's called Anvil demo that I created for this webinar. If I hit ls, there's nothing in here. You'll notice it's a blank folder. And then over here in this tab, I'm going to go ahead and just pull up Python, because I'm going to be using the Python client library that I downloaded and installed earlier for use here. So I'm going to go ahead. The first thing is you need to set the Anvil API key. So key, switching back over and grabbing the API key. So I'm just setting it as an environment variable in my system. And then I can make the requests from there. Over here, what I'm going to do is actually create the payload that I'm going to need to send over to Anvil to generate a PDF. So first things first, you need to create an HTML payload. So I'm just going to actually grab a random payload from W3 Schools. I think I already have it pulled up here. So let's remove the style. And I'm just going to grab this payload of HTML, come back over here, paste it. Great. Next, I'm going to actually create the payload as a JSON string. So I need to first import JSON, and then I'm going to say payload. The structure of the payload needs to be data. And then in there, we're going to have HTML. And then that'll be assigned to the HTML. And we're going to close that payload. And now if I just do JSON.dumps, it will turn it into a string. Let's just make sure it works. Great. That works perfectly. Now what I'm going to do is write this to a file so I can use it in my command line request with the Python client library. So I'm going to first open a file. HTML file.input.txt. And I'm going to write the payload into there. And then I'm going to just, for good measure, close this out. Cool. So switching tabs here, I'm in the same directory. If I do ls, you'll see HTML file input is right there. And to make the request to generate the PDF, I'm just going to go Anvil, generate PDF. If you ever have questions on any of Anvil's commands, you can use --help, and I'll pull up some helpful information for you to use. In this case, we need to pass in an input file, so -i and -o. So that's the output file. In this case, let's call it output.pdf. Right? I'm just going to make the request. Again, remember, I set the API key earlier as an environment variable. And then if I do ls, you'll notice there's a typo, out.pdf instead of output. But there's a PDF. So why don't we go ahead and open it? Let's see if that opened. Out. Right. That's what happens when you type things wrong. There you go. We have a PDF that's been generated from HTML. You'll notice it's actually quite ugly, right? It's just a table. It's kind of just like there, nothing's formatted. That's because I didn't pass in any CSS. So we're going to go ahead and do that as well as part of this demo. So I'm going to go back here and you'll notice that there's CSS. So I'm going to copy this. Again, switching tabs back into my Python here. CSS. I can type. Great. So I created CSS, and then I'm going to go up. So payload here, I'm going to add CSS, and I'm going to assign it the variable CSS, which is that string. And then we can just see if it's in there, just like we did before. You'll notice CSS is at the bottom, and we're just going to open up a file again with style. Let's make it with style. That. So So writing it as a JSON string, f.close for good measure. Switching back over here, you'll notice that now we have a file called with style. That's the payload of data. We're going to make the same requests, but this time we are going to use the with style. And actually, let's change the output file to outstyle.pdf. Great. Now we have a file called outstyle.pdf, as you can see, second from the left, and we're going to open it. And there you go. Now we have styling. So very easy, very flexible. You can control the look and feel of your HTML generated PDF and kind of build whatever PDF you need from Anvil. And with that, let's go back over to the slide deck. Quick recap, you can fill out a template. Template docs can be uploaded into Anvil and tagged, and then you send data to it. You can generate a template from HTML, and then we didn't demonstrate today, but you can also generate a PDF from Markdown, and it does support tables. It's very similar to the HTML generation endpoint. You're just passing in Markdown as the payload, and that's pretty much it. So with that, we're going to go to Q&A, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay. First question that we have here is, can I use my own font? Yes, you may use your own font. I know if you're using a PDF template, you can actually templatize each field to a specific font or the entire PDF to a specific font using our no-code UI. We support Google fonts. If you look at the dropdown, we have a subset of Google fonts, but you can also pass in a specific Google font as the font. Anvil will gracefully fall back to a different font if there's a specific glyph that is not available in the font. And this helps you avoid those dreaded question marks in PDFs that you undoubtedly have opened before and you can't read it. There was a question about tables. Hopefully I demonstrated that tables with HTML generation, but you can also do this with PDF templates. If you have a PDF template that has a set number of rows in the table, what you can do is just set it up as an array, and then you would pass an array of data. The nice thing about Anvil is we will automatically repeat that page until that all the data has been put onto the PDF. So you'll have repeated pages to expand that table. Okay, somebody's asking about performance. If we have 1,000+ transactions, Anvil is built to scale with your system. We've tested our system under load, and I will say for the vast majority of PDF generation, even under load, it's sub 1 second. The vast majority is like 200 milliseconds. And then our system's set up to auto scale. So if we start seeing more load, we'll scale up our systems to support. And to this day, I don't think load has been an issue. There is a rate limit on API keys. Like I mentioned, the development key has a much stricter rate limit than the production keys. The production keys, I believe, is 40 requests per second. So if you want to, that's definitely in our documentation. But if you take a look at that, you can make 40 requests per second per a production key. Where do we store the PDF and the data? So in the 2 endpoints I demonstrated today, we don't store any of the data. The data gets passed to us. We put it onto a PDF, and then we just drop it on the ground. We stream the data, the PDF back to you as bytecode, and then you're responsible for storing that PDF. If for any reason you want to get that PDF again, maybe you forgot to save it, you would need to make a request to Anvil again with the data or the HTML payload to then get a version of that PDF. So it is generated just in time. It's completely transitory in memory, and that helps us a lot with just kind of, a lot of people like that because we're not storing their data. Do we support different size PDFs? Yes, we do. You can set PDF page sizes on template. It would just be encoded in the PDF. We support horizontal landscape pages as well as portrait mode pages. Okay, when would you suggest using PDF generate versus PDF fill? If the styling remains fairly constant, should we always use PDF fill? I think this is really up to you as a developer or a product builder. It depends on how much control you want to have or how much control you are allowed to have. I know there are a lot of documents out there that are standardized government documents, let's say an I-9, a W-4, W-2, and you have to do it on their document. It's probably best to just use the template, right? Upload the PDF, tell Anvil where the fields need to go, and then Anvil will fill it out with information. But if you have a little bit more flexibility, or you want to really make it look and feel like your product, then HTML and CSS is probably the best way to go. I think we leave that decision up to our developers. We want to make the most flexible, most easily accessible platform for any kind of document need. Cool. And with that, I think we're right about on time. And I think that's all the questions that we received for today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Hopefully this was helpful and kind of showing you how Anvil can be integrated into your product. Some of the client libraries, I was using the Python client library in today's test, as well as the Postman workspace. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us at support@useanvil.com and check out all of our other products as well. Workflows is extremely powerful. I don't know how many times I've talked to somebody and they've said something to the lines of, "Oh man, if I had found workflows and the web forms, I wouldn't have built this all by hand from scratch. I would have just used that and then styled it to look like my product." So definitely check that out. But we do offer flexibility. We allow you to integrate the way you want to integrate. Cool. That's it from us. And thank you for tuning in. Check us out at useanvil.com.